of the American Legion. And he, with his local counterparts in New Hampshire, they're on the way to meet with Governor Chris Sununu, who's done a lot on the Veterans Front. But Dan's in our studios. He lives in Wisconsin. He's on the road, though, more often than he's home these days. But talking about veterans advocacy, Dan, as the National Commander of the American Legion, thank you for being here in our studios. Good morning, New Hampshire. Thank you and welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Well, your mission is all about supporting your fellow veterans.
Absolutely.
And you do it around the country, year-round. You think about everything. And just tell me about your story of service.
For me, it was a short time, but I was commissioned back in 1995, raised my hand, and part of my first, we could say the first aspect of my journey started then in San Diego. After 2 weeks at the we would call basic, I went to Camp Pendleton and served with base Marines, and that journey was, I mean, if I had a sign, I could have signed my name on the dotted line and served there forever.
Really?
I loved it, man. It was great. It was that connection. So talking about family, there's something about us when we raise our hand and we join the military, and I'm sure our audience and listeners know exactly, if they served, that understanding when we talk about family and connection.
Now, as Maine begins to heal, and we know so many of our listeners in Maine and York and Androscoggin County, of course, WTSN, Seacoast of New Hampshire, right up into Portland, Maine. Good morning. Is the healing and grieving and the healing process there is going to last? I don't even know if it will stop. It's, what happened, it was so hard to believe. 18 people's lives taken and 13 injured, some still in the hospital this morning. But what we're learning, and you're concerned about mental health. You and I were talking about it before we went on the show. You might be visiting near there coming up in the near future, and mental health and suicide prevention, but mental health with the veterans and folks in the military who need it. There were so many warning signs here with Robert Card in terms of his own military, superiors, colleagues, family, law enforcement, so many red flags that he was not well.
Exactly. And I think, Jack, the big thing is that we have the resources, at least in my opinion, we have the resources, but we don't implement them. And finding more information, we got to find more information, more facts. But it seems like this is a case right here where there were signs, but that the treatment and everything was not implemented.
Yeah. And Dan, I know you work with several partners out there, including probably the VA. We have a great relationship here with the Manchester VA, Kevin Forrest, but all the nonprofit, private veteran service groups. We have a lot in New Hampshire. I think we're very veteran friendly in New Hampshire, veteran ready. But what I worry about is just focusing, because we need to learn. We need to learn from what's happened if we actually want to make a difference in the future. Now, in just this one case, it happened to be a person who was an Army reservist with a history that was getting worse on mental health. But what I'm concerned is sometimes people are alone and they fall into a depression, and we have suicide awareness. Too many veterans take their own lives, for example, but they get alone. They don't know someone at the American Legion. They don't go down to a meeting. They don't go to one of your dinners. They don't have the colleagues and the peer support. And then there are times, as you said, where family members send out the alarms.
Correct.
And the resources may be there, but how do we connect the dots?
Yeah, I wish I had that magic.
I know.
That magic wand as well, and that's why it is so important for us as an organization. In fact, we our posts, we have more posts in our nation than there are Walmarts. Darn close to that of more than McDonald's.
Really?
Yes. So we're all over. That's why our mission. And I'm embracing this.
Tell us the mission for people that they've heard the name, they've heard the term American Legion. But if they're not, tell us what the mission.
So the American Legion we're the largest, by far, the largest wartime veterans organization in the world, right? So our mission, and that we've been embracing last year, we're continuing on, and we'll continue it for next year and probably another 2 years, because again, this is such a big deal. But our mission is entitled "Be the One." Be the one. So in that, be the one, we're the one to ask, We're the one to listen. We're the one to reach out. We need to ask, and I've been going all over. I've probably been to like 15 states so far. I was elected at the end of August, and I haven't been home. I think I was home like one day
Yeah.
out of 52 days, and now I'm back
Nonstop.
on the road again.
Nonstop.
So nonstop. And I'm not running for an office. All right.
Yeah.
but this is so important because,
Yeah.
I've seen where, and I've heard where we have been just doing that, ask and listening and reaching out, where we stopped fellow veterans and even the family members
Right.
stop from taking their lives, because you just said it before. They had purpose once again.
Yeah.
They had purpose. People cared. People were listening. And they thought, wait a minute, this is important. People do care.
And sometimes the veterans need fellow veterans to talk with.
Absolutely.
They need that comfort level of trust or familiarity. Now, Dan C. Hafer, by the way, national commander, one of the national leaders in the country, United States of America, for our veterans, American Legion.
Yes.
Dan, if someone's not a member of the Legion, and by the way, you have great local folks who set this up. They do a tremendous job here. They really do. If someone's not familiar with the Legion and they're not a veteran, how can they help your mission? I mean, if they're just someone out there saying, you know what, I want to do more. We need to help connect these dots. There's resources are there. How can we help the American Legion?
Well, one thing that we do is just go and be familiar with our organization. They can always go to legion.org and they can contribute to our certain foundations and our programs, in which what we have done in the past, we talk about, not only is a suicide an issue, but in the political realm, we hear about the shutdown, the government shutdown.
Right. And we look at a possible, I'm not sure with the new House Speaker, possible one in November again.
Correct. So if it isn't taken care of, November 18th will be a shutdown.
Yeah. What about military pay? What about
exactly? Exactly. So what if it could be? I always say this. I stress it could be that our troops will not get paid. Now, I've talked personally. I went to the Hill. I've talked to senators and representatives, and they're assuring me that won't happen. Some have said, and they knock on their desk, on the wood, hoping, but if there is, go back to 2019, there was a shutdown, but it was the American Legion that stepped up, especially for our Coast Guard family members, to cover that gap.
Wow.
We gave a grant to those that were highly affected. Those were those junior enlisted, and working with top-notch Coast Guard, but we gave a $1.4 million grant.
American Legion.
Yes.
Yeah, the Coast Guard.
To,
and
to offset costs.
And commanders, many of these families, that check, because they might have loved ones at home with a couple of kids, that check is check to check. I mean,
absolutely. That's what they do.
You miss one or two checks and you're behind months.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's a trickle-down effect too, because what happens is now landlords are paid, businesses are supported, because it's just not just the family, it's community. It's community.
Well, listen, thank you so much, Dan C. Hafer. We're going to keep in touch with your local folks. National Commander, American Legion, talking about supporting veterans, those who need the support, mental health services, suicide prevention. And as you say, and I agree, the resources are there, but a lot of times it's hard reaching those who need them most. And then even when we look at the situation in Maine, even when the alarms are set, sometimes the veteran doesn't get that management. And I don't know, we need to talk about a management system where we make sure that someone doesn't hurt themselves or, God forbid, hurt others. So thank you so much for your mission.
No problem.
Thank you for your service.
And you're welcome.
I wish we had more time. Dan C. And by the way, if you want to learn more, as you said, just the Legion, or just Legion, not the Legion.com, Legion.com. Thank you so much, Commander.
You bet. Thank you kindly.
All right. Take a quick break. Good morning, New Hampshire, the Pulse Foundation. We come back. John Decker, our own White House Dan Egan back on the show. He's got a lot of fans. I posted, we got some great reaction online. Dan Egan, of course, he's an author. He's going to be bringing back a ski area that he once ran that goes back to the 10th Mountain Division. I'll talk about that in a minute. But one of his latest books, All Terrain Skiing 2, like part 2, Body Mechanics and Balance from Powder to Ice. I never liked the ice much, even on the face of Cannon Mountain. But Dan Egan in our studios, Mr. Skiing New Hampshire. No offense to Bodie Miller because he's living out west now. You're here. Dan, thanks for being back in studio.
Great to see you, Jack. Nice to be with you.
I was looking at one of your books online the other day when I knew you were coming out. You were skiing some morning daybreak in France with some guy, up in the 14,000 feet doing some crazy stuff. But you made skiing fun before people got into it as big as they do, including the Warren Miller stuff. Anyway, you're from Boston, but you're a New Hampshire guy.
Yeah, skiing's a great sport. It's generational. A lot of us learn from the older generation. We pass it on. Of course, my parents got us skiing up here in New Hampshire, and once it becomes in your blood, you just want to keep doing it.
Well, we're getting close, right? Now the season upon us, but you're going to be working for a living. You're not going to be out skiing on jumping off rooftops on camera from movies. You're going to be actually bringing back one of New Hampshire's, I guess, classic ski areas to life.
Tenny Mountain right there in Plymouth, New Hampshire. It's a gem of a ski area. It's a traditional New England place. And, to have a independent family focused resort right there in central New Hampshire, it's going to be exciting.
Well, you know what? It's a tough business, and any business is tough, but it's like I used to say to one of the folks that ran Bretton Woods, Chris Helms, it's like farming, right? You're dependent on a lot of things.
You're dependent on a lot of things. Of course, weather, so we're happy to see the weather get a little colder. And people, people make the business great. People make the experience great, and we have a great team up there at Tenny.
But, the last few years in particular, I don't know if people just wanting to get away, and I don't blame them. And ski areas have been busy, and I've noticed the ski seasons is sort of a second half snow with all the natural stuff right when you want it. So the skiing's been great right into the spring.
Yeah, no doubt. And there's been a lot of volume. People have gotten outside and doing a lot of great activities. And the beautiful thing about a mountain like Tenny and some other independent family focused resorts in the area is that we offer the value. It's affordable.
Well, we're going to talk about what you're doing because it's an easy car ride for a lot of people listening in our region, but the challenges, but also just what have you been doing these days? Your new book, All Terrain Skiing, I guess part 2, Body Mechanics and Balance. What was it? How many years in a white haze?
30 years in white haze feels like
that's a classic.
Keeps going. And the instructional book, I've got a free app. You can download 32 different videos and drills on YouTube as well. The whole idea of getting people outside, getting them moving, gaining control of your skis and your snowboard, just so it's more fun and people change their paradigm on how they see the hill and where they go. And
you've been doing this since you were a kid. Where did you folks first get you going up here?
Yeah, I was an ankle biter. You know what I mean? They wanted us outside of the house.
Yeah,
we were jumping on the
4
couch.
Years old.
Exactly.
Get out there and ski. I don't care if it's 10 below. Get out there and ski and don't come in.
Stop bouncing on the couch with your skis. You know what I mean?
Well, it's great stuff. And I just saw on social media, you were the younger athlete recently. What was that all about?
Oh,
young guy, someone you were.
Yeah, my new film.
Yeah. What is it?
Well, it's called Transforming the Beautiful Game. It's about the first Clyde Best, the first black soccer player in the Premier League. And then later here in the U.S. and the North American Soccer League won the championship with Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Wow. And where do people find your films or your main stuff, your books, everything?
Yeah, you can find it all at dan-egan.com.
Dan-Egan, E-G-A-N. We're going to come back and talk a little bit about what he's up to at Tenny, but I think it's going to be a great season. And I think you're right. Not to bring it up at our last guest, pretty heavy duty stuff, talking about what's going on college campuses, the Middle East, divisive politics. This is what people every day are dealing with. But you know what? In your area, and I understand why, a lot of people are coming to New Hampshire and Maine. They're leaving some of the bigger cities. They do want to get out. They do want to shut everything off. They do want to kind of shut it off and get out and recreate and enjoy because there's nothing better. We're going to come back with Dan Egan and latest news, top of the hour. Good morning, New Hampshire. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. Latest on a lot of the big stuff. Kit Kat, but that was the big one. All right, we are on the YouTube as well, our own at the Pulse of NHR YouTube channel. Coming up more on the presidential primary stuff. Congressman Phillips, Democrat from Minnesota, a little inconvenient truth for the Biden reelection in New Hampshire today at St. Anselm. Protesters, by the way, you never thought you'd see this, right? In our own country, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, updating the Senate on the effort to support Israel, our only ally in the Middle East. Protesters in there, protesters in there. We're the bad guys. Okay. This is going to continue college campuses, the administration acknowledging we had to do something about this anti-Semitism. We're going to come back to that. Also, some key economic data out this week. We have a lot more coming up. But in our studios, by the way, it was great to have the American Legion National Commander in our studios to kick off this show, talking about the need to support our veterans and mental health even more in the wake of what we're learning about Robert Card, in the suspect in the murder of 18 and the wounding of 13 in Maine. He lived in Bowdoin, but of course, Lewiston, Maine, still reeling, trying to recover from that. We're learning the family of the suspect had reached out, including within the last month or so, urging authorities to go by, saying we're worried he could do this. And where do we miss the warning signs? What do we do? Questions that will linger. Going to switch gears on a fun subject because of the weather. Today's beautiful. Dan Egan in our studios made the trip down from that Plymouth Campton area, kind of in the center of New Hampshire. Dan's hard to describe on all he's done in the ski industry, but between films and books and promoting and doing some crazy jumps, because he was kind of extreme before it was cool on the slopes. But he's bringing one of our shuttered ski areas back to life, he and his partners. And I wanted to showcase it because I think there's a real niche for the simpler, quaint ski areas as well. And we have Waterville, of course, and Loon, and you have Cranmore and Bretton Woods and a lot of the high-tech stuff. But these are expensive experiences, Dan. If you go ski in some of these areas on a Saturday, you're spending what for a day ticket? $130?
$135 and more. And,
that's just for
hard.
you.
Yeah, that's just for you, not for the whole family.
The car full.
Yeah. Well, I think of my dad putting the family, all of us in the family truckster heading up north, and, just how crazy that would be today. But at Tenny, we're going to hit that value proposition for $65 weekend ticket. So it's going to be a good way for families to get out there.
As I said earlier, one of our kids went to Plymouth State. So you're not 10 or 11 minutes from?
Oh, yeah. Right down the street from Plymouth State, get off at exit 26. And we're there. You can see it from the highway. Now that we've cut back all the trails, Jack, it's amazing. The trails are really popping right there off the mountain. And
I guess we have a caller who wants to say hi to Dan.
Yes.
Mark in Belmont. Go ahead, Mark. You're on with Dan Egan.
Yeah, so we'll test Dan's memory, whether or not he recognizes the name Mark Eckberg from when he did some summer coaching up at Stowe.
Nice to hear you, Mark. Yeah, for sure. Nice. Yeah. Well done.
Well, I won't hold it against you if you don't. But no, I mean, I'm always excited to see some of these mountains open. I think Whittier just came up for sale. Mm-hmm. So my question, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners have, is what are you going to do different from the last time that you were driving the boat there at Tenny?
Well, of course, it's all about the owners, and this time our owner Steve Kelly, right from Boston, has the leverage and the means and the knowledge to build out the resort the way it should be, and the desire. He wants to do it. And that's a big difference. We've already spent a lot of money just reviving the ski area, and the plans moving forward, including a hotel and a village, all that looking forward here in the spring. But the big piece, of course, for Tenny has always been snowmaking and water. And all that's in the plans.
And location.
Location. We've got a great location.
Right off the highway in the center of the state. So if those kids are screaming in the backseat, are we there yet?
Exactly. And you are. Exactly.
Hey, Mark, thank you.
Yep.
And Dan, I'm the times I spent up at the wilderness ski area, and I'm just the efforts to bring back some of our resorts. Right. Once a ski area is closed or a golf course, people don't realize how quickly it can go into not decay, but natural, the weeds. It doesn't take long you got to keep up with it.
Absolutely. Lot happens there with the infrastructure.
The balsams is what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah. The balsam's amazing. I was up there
what a beautiful spot. It's just all closed.
Yeah. It's hard to watch. It's hard to see it in its current state. And Tenny now has a bit of a pulse. We had a great Oktoberfest.
We're
on the pulse and we're feeling our own pulse Of course, we had a great Oktoberfest this past weekend. So, and the bar and grill has been open all summer. So a lot of people coming up the mountain road, Jack, and they're excited. And Tenny has a real loyal following. They want to see us succeed for sure.
Yeah. Well, again, and I think, as I said, someone who did the same thing. I mean, my late mom was from West Bethel, Maine. So Sunday River in Maine used to be just a little family ski area. I mean, just a little, it was Cascade and a T-bar over at the mixing bowl in one lift, and people would change in the parking lot and put your boots on and not worry in the lodge. If you put something down, it wasn't going to be stolen or, taken.
Yeah, that's right.
And kids were safe.
And that's it. All trails here lead to the base lodge, and it is safe. You can leave your bag in the base lodge. You don't have to lock stuff up, and families are welcome. All are welcome to come and hang out, listen to some music. We have headlamp skiing at night, tubing. And, I just think the community is so behind this, Jack. It's awesome to see everybody rallying for Tenny Mountain.
So right off 93, and as I said, Plymouth State is a good marker, because Plymouth State, when you go up 93, many of you will see the football stadium there. You'll see the campus. And when did Tenny first open? And you had a great story in terms of great military story in terms of how it first opened.
Yeah, Sam Hall was a 10th Mountain Division war veteran and loved skiing and loved the mountains, and his kids and Sam, they all cut those trails, Jack. It's amazing. And Gardner Hall's up at the mountain all the time still today, telling us about the deep history of his dad. His dad was still alive when I last ran Tenny back in 2002 and 2004. And I remember sitting on the chairlift when he passed, and getting that phone call, and just so much of his spirit is behind what we're doing up there.
When was the area last fully open for skiing?
Well, really, just then in the early 2000s is when it was most vibrant. Back then.
So you're really bringing it back. Here we are, 2023 going into 2024.
It's a big lift. It has run on and off since then, but not as a serious resort.
And again, you're going to try, and your appeal is going to be a family experience. Chill out, relax. You don't have to worry. When you go into the lodge, it's mellow. You don't have to worry about a locker, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. You're not going to get run over on the trail either. We've got space up there, place to park and come and relax and enjoy the mountains for the way it should be.
And I don't know, I think of Ragged in the past, but I don't know if I've ever been to Tenny. How big of a mountain is it? How the vertical? I mean, people going to get a good run off the lift?
It's a great ski. I love skiing at Tenny. It's over 1,400 vertical. It's got great glades, that old classic New England double fall line, and a lot to do at Tenny. There's a lot to discover. And once you get up on top, it's amazing views of the surrounding area.
I was just going to ask you, nice views of the area, the hill. Yeah. And of course, again, the proximity, because you're not that far away, but you are, you're.
Well, that's the whole magic of it, isn't it, Jack? That's sort of to get out there and just enjoy yourself, your friends and your families. And you sit on that chairlift and you're sort of transported and transformed by the time you get to the top.
And again, your latest book.
I'll Train Skiing Volume 2. You can check it out. And of course,
just
you can
a basic
download
on
the
how
app.
People can maybe just improve their game a little bit, get better control on their board and skis.
Yeah, it's all about body mechanics and moving, and the more movement, more control. So sort of basic stuff. But Jack, it's all on the mental side of skiing. Don't judge yourself. Get out there and love it.
Yeah, I'm still trying to learn the body thing in golf. No, I'm kidding. Use your weight, don't fight it. But great stuff. And you know what? A lot of people, I don't know if they've done this. I'm sure they have, but I think a lot of people out there, and Mark would speak to this. Thank you to Dan Egan for what you've meant and done for New Hampshire skiing, even though you're a Boston City kid. I remember you telling me the story of the little hill in Boston. Was it Dorchester?
Yeah, Blue Hills. Blue Hills,
yeah.
right outside. Exactly.
But what you've done really for New Hampshire skiing overall over the years, from you're now one of the guardians, the lifeguards of skiing in the state, and your books, great stuff. And you've done a lot. So thank you.
No, thank you. And thanks to everybody out there that supported Tenny in the past. And come on up and check us out this winter. It'll be a lot of fun.
And what you've done and what you've been, the inspiration for young kids, the number of kids you've turned on to the sport is great.
I love doing that. And you see it in their eyes because they get psyched up and they want to keep skiing and get going. Of course, Jack, you can check us out at skitenny.com, all the information.
Skitenny.com. And your stuff, your books, your movies, dan-egan.com.
That's right. Absolutely.
Now, a crazy question,
yeah.
But, some places, I know where some places will be making snow soon. You're going to open in December.
December 23rd, we're going to reopen. Come on up for a
For that
grand opening
Christmas
party
week.
for that Christmas week. And we start turning on the guns shortly. Watch the news.
And if people don't want to learn more or get some early stuff on deals, can they go get some tickets, or are there season tickets you're offering?
Season passes. We'll be at the Boston Ski Show this weekend with a special on season passes. And we've got a great deal up there for kids of all ages. So come on up and join us.
Boston Ski Show's this weekend?
It's this weekend, Friday, Saturday,
I did not
Sunday.
even know that. All right.
Yeah.
Cool stuff, Dan, and I'll catch up with you. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for your latest book. All right, when we come back, we're going to be business background. He's a pastor, family, Dallas, Texas. On the younger side, I'm not going to bring up our current president, but he's running here in New Hampshire, respecting our primary, unlike Joe Biden, the Democrat, who's not running here. It's, by the way, just some quick side commentary. I thought it was interesting now that the Democrats here, some of the state leaders are all excited to start this write-in campaign, the write-in campaign for Joe Biden. When the president wants to take away our primary, they're excited to do the write-in campaign for Joe Biden. And it's interesting because Congressman Dean Phillips from Minnesota is campaigning as we speak in New Hampshire, running for president. Someone who else is Ryan Binkley. He's in our studios. Thanks for being in our studios. Thanks for being here.
Well, great, Jack. It's great to be with you as well. Great to be here in New Hampshire, and it's a great day today.
Well, I read about your background, and now I think it's a great story to bring to a national discussion because you have the business background. You understand what's, I think, happening and some of the cultural tug of war that we're feeling, that I'm sensing. Let's start with our younger folks, because that's the future, right? Right?
Absolutely.
Our younger folks. You must see this. You're in a growing area. Dallas is booming last time I heard. College campuses. I'm the least surprised person in the room when I see this anti-Semitic, not supporting Israel behavior, because to me, I'm going to ask you this, Ryan Binkley, presidential candidate, Republican. You can tell us the website in a moment. To me, for a long time on college campuses, before Israel was being threatened, our only ally in the Middle East, there's been an anti-American sentiment brewing and being taught on these campuses, some of the loftiest campuses like Ivy League, Columbia, UPenn, Harvard. Am I right or wrong on that?
You're absolutely right. And it wouldn't matter what it is. You're right. It could have been an American issue. It could be any issue. If it doesn't fit the narrative of a far left social agenda, then they are going to protest about it. And this is what we need to do. My wife and I did young adult ministry for 17 years before we started our church 10 years ago. So we've always been in the lives of young people. I've got 5 kids, 13 to 23. So my kids have friends.
That's zone defense.
And so we're engaged with this young generation. This is what happens to the Republican Party. We lose this generation. So we lost 70% of the college vote in the last election. We lost 46 of the top 50 cities by population. So a lot of younger people live in bigger cities as well. So we're not connecting to them, and they get indoctrinated in their first 6 months in college to a socialism agenda. So what we have to do is recognize this and start speaking to them the truth. I think it's the right opportunity for us. Everywhere I go, I've done several college town hall events. We're talking to them about our debt, about the agendas, about what's the truth out there in America regarding world affairs, to our economy, to debt. And you know what? Most of them don't know. You're so right. As you earlier said, they don't know the truth. They don't know the history of Israel. They don't know the history of Palestine. They don't even know what happened in World War II. Exactly.
They don't even know. If you mention Normandy to them, they'd look at you like, is that a red wine?
Exactly. So we have to start there.
Yeah.
We have to be authentic. Right now, when we have leaders that are always divisive, always cascading the far left as a demon or the enemy, we'll never win their hearts. We have to be true to them. We got to tell them the truth. We actually have to show that we care. And when we do that, we'll start connecting to young people. Every time I do this, we start talking to people and we're not yelling at them. Then they'll start reasoning with us, and then we can persuade them and show them the truth. And when we do that, we'll win.
Ryan Binkley, I want to ask you this question before I come back to you a little bit while you're running for president. Before we even talk about how to educate and talk with younger people about real history, real economics, real world stuff, where did this anti-American socialist agenda, because I think it started 10, 20 years ago at least. Why and how did that? Because, one of the alumni at Columbia that's taken away his money, his last name is Cooperman, had a great line about the kids today. They have blank for brains. But I would say some of the professors have blank for brains. Where did this, from a professor point of view, this pro-socialist, far left, America stinks, we're the problem, where did that come from? Because last time I checked, some of these college professors have a pretty good life here.
Well, it's been decades, as you mentioned, and likely even in the 60s it started, maybe even before then. So this is a movement that's been going on, a Marxism, socialism movement. It's been going on for decades. And this is really the voice my heart came to me, that America was actually created, I believe, by God to be this nation where we protect liberty and protect freedom. I mean, we're the only nation that has a constitution that says, listen, we are going to protect freedom of speech, freedom of press,
I know.
the freedom to protest. And now what are we doing? We are actually protesting against our own freedoms of truth and honesty, because if we
And we
don't
can't even agree that freedom's a good thing.
right, if we don't agree
Yeah.
unilaterally with you,
Well-
then they want to protest against that. So we got to speak truth, speak it in love, though, and actually share with the generation how to really navigate through this time.
Well, you mentioned faith. This is one I can't understand either. And I talk about it on this show quite a bit, and we have some extra time with you. We're going to come back to, again, your candidacy and all that, but I love talking about our current life. We still have in our currency, in God we trust. And it amazes me. It amazes me. Why is faith even something that people are afraid to talk about? I personally don't know how people get up in the morning if they don't believe in something greater than themselves, have humility, give thanks, count their blessings, and try and do some good. It's just weird. I'm just weird that way. I'm old school. I don't understand. We don't take our houses and our bank accounts with us. Why? I mean, in Durham, New Hampshire, you may not know this, sir, but in Durham, New Hampshire, home of our University of New Hampshire flagship, our kids went there, beautiful campus, University of New Hampshire. A couple people in town objected to the annual lighting of the Christmas tree. So they quickly had a meeting and they changed it to a holiday tree because a couple people felt uncomfortable with Christmas. What on earth is uncomfortable about Christmas? I don't get it sometimes. And if you have another thing that you want to celebrate, fine, respect that. But it was a Christmas tree. It will be a Christmas tree. Even faith. Now, I love it when I'll see like an athlete or like Mark Wahlberg gets up in the morning, thanks God. He gets very trying to help younger people connect with the Catholic Church. I understand the flaws of the Catholic Church. I became a Catholic. I guess my point is, why are we afraid in this country to even talk about faith, Christian values? And why is that even polarized or politicized?
You know, it's not polarized when we actually have a moment in our nation where we need to look up to God. You know, I thought about this a lot. You know, it's probably been since 9/11 that we all saw a tragedy happen in our own nation that was beyond our control.
Mhm.
And everyone thought to look up. If you remember 22 years ago, churches were full,
Mhm.
not for long. But when COVID hit,
I saw more American flags after 9/11
Right.
too.
but when COVID hit, we didn't have any leadership say, hey, we need to look up again. In fact, we've lost this
Yeah,
moment.
we could
when
go to Walmart, but you can't go to church.
You know, we
Wait a
had-
minute, we can go. Excuse me, you can go to the box
Right.
store. You can
So-
go to the box, but we're not sure about church.
So what is it going to take for us to look up again? In fact, in scripture, God oftentimes allows us to go through a battle, a war, a plague, famine, even until we do look up. And so, you know, I think it's time for us to do that again. We're seeing so much happen in
But
our
how do you
economy.
get a young person to believe?
You know, I think everyone's got to have their own moment. At the end of the day, we come to an end to ourselves. We find out, regardless of success, regardless of fame, regardless of even a nation, you know, that has images and has agendas and has ideology, that it's all void and absent without true faith in God. But usually it takes a moment. It's a personal moment.
We have to go to break. I want to ask you one question. A week ago today, in that seat was Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. And in the seat that Josh McKelvin, my good friend of mine, backup host on the show, former political director, WMUR TV, was Governor Chris Sununu. I asked a question to Governor DeSantis. I'm going to ask you the question. And at an event later in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, so a friend of mine was there. He brought up the question because he said, no one's asked me that. I'm going to ask you the same question. You're probably, correct me if I'm wrong, about the same age and stage in life as the governor of Florida. Am I correct?
I'm 55. He's probably 10 years younger than me.
Okay, but you're on the younger side compared to our president, Donald Trump.
I'm much younger at heart. Yes. And,
No, okay,
and
but
life.
you seem
Absolutely.
to be you get 5 kids at home. He has a young son, so you don't have to be running for president. It's a daunting task. The national media will tell you in the end it's Biden and Trump, whether you like it or not. And I asked the Florida governor, just got reelected to a big state. He's not even 45. He knew Trump was going to run again. He's the incumbent president. He leads in all the polls, including Iowa, New Hampshire. Name recognition in the news every day. You can't turn on some of these networks, including CNN, without Trump, 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 Trump. And Governor DeSantis could have waited to 2028, 2032. Why expend the capital now? Trump's going to be tough to beat. Why are you running for president now, Governor DeSantis? And I'm going to ask you, Ryan Binkley, same question. Why are you running for president of the United States when a lot of people don't know who you are? Why are you going through this? Why are you running now?
8 years ago, Jack, I'm running a business. We have about 400 employees. I'm lead pastor of a church. I've got 5 kids, as you mentioned. But 8 years ago, in a dream, message from my heart came from God that our nation's in trouble and something's coming that we're not ready for. And he really gave me these words, and it came subsequently year after year that America's in desperate need of a spiritual revival and an economic revival, that something was coming that we are not connected to nor prepared for. And the reason I'm running this race is so we can call our nation back to that. I have an economics background. I see things financially that no president, President Trump, no other candidates really speaking to the tipping point of debt that's going to cause the next generation, I think, to have a financial collapse if we don't fix in the next few years. So I see
Number of
that
young people can't even afford to buy a house.
it's far worse than what we even know.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now, college kids, they have to get 3 and 4 roommates. They got to go live with their parents. It's a difficult time. Delayed employment, underemployment.
So a real concern for the future.
For the next generation. I've got 5 kids. When people ask me, why are you running? It's for the next generation. And we have to do this now economically, but also spiritually. We've got a divisive rhetoric that's decaying our country. And if we don't lead with inspiration right now to come out of this, what's our 250th birthday going to be like 3 years from now? I'm so glad it's not today. I'm running so that birthday 3 years from now looks a lot different. And I believe this, that I'm called to do it. I'm sharing a voice to let New Hampshire be relevant, not just first. Let's let not the RNC or the big media determine who's at the debate. Let's let New Hampshire decide the field, and that's why I'm in this race.
Do you think sometimes even running for president and the nomination it's almost a rigged process, both major parties?
There's no question there's a big wave, and there's no question they've already selected their candidates. At this time, this is where we got to let the voice in the wilderness, the one that's speaking to the unseen, let's let these voices be heard. And that's what I'm talking to. I'm talking to young people. I'm talking to adults. I'm talking to people that recognize the party doesn't represent them anymore. And this is I believe this. That our Constitution was about these 3 words, we the people. And so that's what I'm running for, we the people.
I appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break. The website?
Binkley2024.com. We've got
BINKLEY
2024.com.
And what's your business real quickly?
Well, Generational Group, we do mergers and acquisitions, financial consulting. We do strategic consulting with software, also wealth management.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play the Pulse on J-Dog. I know you're getting over not winning your pie eating contest. You still do. We'll come back with that and a lot more, but we have our guest in studio. Top of the 11 o'clock, Rory O'Neill, NBC News Radio national correspondent. Next hour as well, Rob Carson checks in. J-Dog, he wants you to Venmo him $10 to call in. I told him, turn it around. You went Venmo us. Back on that with Good Morning New Hampshire right after this. running for president here in New Hampshire. Thank you for respecting our primary, unlike the current president.
Such an honor too, because we need to do well right here. We need to be right here. So this is where we're supposed to be.
What I want to ask you one last time, and I'm going to give you the few minutes because you come at this from a business background, a family, a dad, a husband, pastor, and you don't have to be doing this. Obviously, you know, I always ask successful people, Doug Burgum, North Dakota, why are you running? You don't have to be. This cultural thing, we're right getting into the heart of it now, watching this reaction on college campuses to what's happening in the Middle East. I happened to be watching Band of Brothers the other night on World War II, just one of the later episodes when they came across their first concentration camp, Easy Company. They didn't even know what it was. It was so horrific. They couldn't, they had to call command saying, we're in Germany. We just came across something. And I've been to the Holocaust Museum, and I've always had a healthy respect and understanding for World War II. These kids today don't. Our founding fathers, amazing individuals, but even that's politicized because they lived in the times they live in. But I believe in things greater. I look at World War II, this rotund prime minister in Great Britain named Winston Churchill, at the right time, rallied, spoke to his nation as they were getting bombed every night by the Luftwaffe. So why can't we have a discussion about something greater than what we think about ourselves is so important?
Well, we have to get back. You know, we think about education, next generation, teaching them history. A lot of people asked me, you know, a year ago what I thought of critical race theory. And I said, listen, I have no problem, and we should teach actual history, not theory. But why don't we teach actual history of our founding fathers as well? Why don't we get back to teaching what they prayed and what they believed in, and some of the historical documents that are there, and how they counted on God and prayed for wisdom, and actually George Washington praying for favor so we could win this, you know, impossible war to win. And I think if we did that, we'd start giving people the foothold and the foundation for what we're standing for today. And, you know, this is what we have to do. We have to win the next generation. And I think it's going to be one with wisdom, you know, with a heart for people. So our message,
how about humility?
Our message is about just this. Hey, let's get wisdom for the finances. We bloated healthcare. We have a plan to change that. But when we connect to urban America and the poor and the Republican Party, this is the way I'll lead as president. Let's have a Republican alternative to socialism through charity, through community service, through volunteerism. Right. And Jack, when we do this, I think people start seeing, hey, listen, our party factions don't matter. What matters is we care about Americans. Let's bring truth. Let's bring wisdom. Let's bring moments of care for the most hurting. When we do that, I think we'll win the heart of people and we'll get our country back.
Well, the divisiveness, even within the Republican Party, I mean, people look at this and they look at Washington as broken. Hey, listen, I appreciate it. I'd love to get you back on, but thank you for swinging through New Hampshire in person, respecting the primary. Ryan Binkley, Dallas, Texas. I hear Dallas is growing.
Thank you. It is. We're going like crazy all the way to Oklahoma.
And by the way, the Cowboys, J-Dog, what's going on? They're winning.
Well, you know, when we play bad teams, we win. That's what we do.
Are they keeping Jerry Jones out of off the sidelines?
You know, I am praying for a new day. I'm always wanting that new coach.
No, the Cowboys are fun. They're great.
You know, it's
team.
Been great. Hey, great to be with you. By the way, if anybody wants to check us out, Binkley2024.com. Appreciate it.
All right, come back. Rory O'Neill, NBC News Radio National correspondent. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa.